Well, happy Halloween, everybody. One of my most favorite, funnest holidays next to Christmas. And you're probably wondering, well, why do you talk about Halloween in church? That should be something in church. What's Halloween about here today? But I think it's perfect because Halloween to me is about facing your fears and approaching them from a place of power. Isn't that what we are in unity? We know our union with God. We know our oneness with all that is. So we can approach life and our fears from this place of power. And so when Halloween comes and we dress up in our outlandish costumes, we can laugh at our fears. We can laugh. And there's always some good Halloween humor out there. For instance, why don't mummies go on vacation? They're afraid to relax and unwind. Why do mummies have no friends? They're too wrapped up in themselves. All right? But my personal favorite, you know you're getting old when the clothes you used to wear are now Halloween costumes. Remember the bell-bottoms and the paisleys? You have to face those things and laugh and laugh. I love the Course in Miracles when it talks about the fall in consciousness. They said the fall in consciousness happened. It all began one day when someone forgot to laugh. And here's the paragraph that goes with it. When you saw yourself as separate and alone, you could not help but suffer fear and loneliness and all the ills that come from the base emotion of fear. Fear is degenerating. Nothing about fear is life-giving. You thus were given life only to have it become degenerated by fear. When someone said boo and nobody laughed. So let's all say boo and laugh. Together, boo, laugh, laugh. All right. And dig out your old scary DVDs. Remember Bela Lugosi and Dracula? And Boris Karloff as Frankenstein? And who can forget Vincent Price and all of his many roles? Face your fears and laugh. Why don't ghosts like rain on Halloween? Because it dampens their spirits. Ooh, you can boo. It's okay. Or what do you get when you cross a vampire and a teacher? A lot of blood tips. So we look at the symbolic story of Adam and Eve and the fall in consciousness when they fell into from the consciousness of oneness with God and all life. They fell into the consciousness of separation and fear and seeing each other as other. And their offspring were Cain and Abel. And Cain and Abel immediately began projecting on each other with anger, with hate, with fear, with judgment, seeing each other as other. And ever since then, we've been projecting on each other. Now this story of Cain and Abel is more relevant than ever with the election coming up. This is the most divisive period in our history, probably since the Civil War. Brothers and sisters are seeing each other as other. Friends are breaking up. I know I've unfriended a few people on Facebook because of the negativity that has come through. And Unity is now teamed with an organization called Braver Angels. And Braver Angels is a group of people that are concerned about what's going to happen the day after election, no matter who wins. Whether you're happy, deliriously happy, or whether you're angry and bitter, that all that anger and malice and contempt will come out toward friends and family and neighbors that voted for the other of whichever one wins. Now, some have already decided how they're going to be the day after elections. People have already decided I'm either going to be joyous or I'm going to be angry. And they're ready to fight if the wrong person wins. So I don't know about you, but I've already decided the morning after election, no matter who wins, I'm going to get up and have my cup of coffee, like always. Mocha, French vanilla, the whole works. And then I'm going to go about my day. And I hope if I'm strong enough and centered enough that I see all my brothers and sisters that I meet that day as one with me, no matter who they voted for. And so the group called Braver Angels, it takes courage, is asking us to take the pledge with the words from Abraham Lincoln's second inaugural address, with malice toward none. The with malice toward none pledge. And here's how it goes. Regardless of how the election turns out, I will not hold hate, disdain, or ridicule for those who voted differently for me. Whether I'm pleased or upset about the outcome, I will seek to understand the concerns and aspirations of those who voted differently and look for opportunities to work with the people with whom I disagree. So, how do we want to regard those with different viewpoints? With malice or respect? It's a challenge right now, and if you're courageous enough and want to take this pledge along with me, I already went to the website called Braver Angels, and I clicked on I take this pledge. You can either go on their website and take the pledge or do it right here now in your hearts. If you're comfortable, repeat with me, I dwell in the house of truth. Together, I dwell in the house of truth. My brothers and sisters are one with me. Together, my brothers and sisters are one with me. And if we can keep that state of mind, we'll get through this week no matter what happens. Many of you know I've been doing a class on a series of books called 10 Poems to Change Your Life. And one of the books has a Chinese Taoist who said, the great way isn't difficult for those who are unattached to their preferences. Doesn't mean we don't have preferences, but we don't hold that attachment. My happiness or joy depends on who wins. We're not attached to that for our peaceful state of mind. Another Indian sage once said, strive to be free of the likes and dislikes. And then he goes on to say, if you can't do that, you might as well take up a religion. I love that. Strive to be free of likes and dislikes. If you can't do that, you might as well take up a religion. Now, what he's really saying, again, we all have likes and dislikes, but that attachment, it has to be this way, or I'm either going to be happy or angry or whatever. So we're standing today at a border between two worlds of this split mind in ourselves, in the country, in the world. And we're evolving into a consciousness of oneness, but we're still stuck in that consciousness of fear and separation. And we are being asked to rise up, to come together in love. Metaphysically, the story of Cain and Abel is all about that split mind, when the mind split out of oneness, that was the Garden of Eden, into the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, which is that split mind. And brothers and sisters have been fighting ever since. Now, metaphysically, when you interpret that story metaphysically, Cain and his descendants came from the land of Nod, N-O-D, Nod, which was east of Eden. And Nod, metaphysically, represents that state of mind where you're asleep and confused. Ever been there? Without my coffee, I go there a lot. That state of mind, I'm asleep, I'm confused. In reality, your perception is what you see is what you get. You know, when I first came into Unity, I was so glad to find a spiritual group that didn't focus on hell and damnation and all that kind of negativity. And I love the definition in Unity. What is hell? Do you know what hell is in Unity, the definition? I'll let you conjure that while I get a drink of water.
We've just been doing that this week. So it's not like not recognizing your holiness.
Not recognizing your holiness, absolutely. I like that. I like that almost better than the pat answer that I was given. Hell is useless and unnecessary suffering when you forget your union. It's useless. It's unnecessary suffering. So our choice every day, especially this week of the election, are you going to choose peace of mind, no matter what, or are you going to choose useless and unnecessary suffering? It doesn't mean half of the people are going to be disappointed and the other half aren't. It doesn't mean you might not feel one way or the other. But what are you going to choose? I love when the Course in Miracles says, do you want to be right or do you want to be at peace? Oh, don't we love to be right? But choosing peace is so much greater. The split mind sees separation and judges, takes things personally, attacks and defends, and projects onto others all the unforgiveness that they're holding within themselves. So the way out of the land of Nod, that place of sleepy, confusing consciousness, is a return to innocence, out of guilt and returning to innocence. And that means forgiveness of others and ourselves. And forgiveness doesn't mean you're condoning what anyone is right now or doing. We're not condoning it. Forgiveness means I'm choosing peace. I'm choosing to see this differently. I'm choosing to stand, like Terry just said, in that consciousness of knowing your union. I'm choosing that instead and trusting the higher unfolding evolution of the universe. The universe is constantly unfolding to a higher evolution. And it doesn't always look pretty. It doesn't always look sane. But we have to trust that unfolding. There's no conflict if your mind is not split. That's why Jesus said you can't serve two masters. He was talking about two states of mind. You can't say, well, yes, I believe in all this peace, love stuff, but I'm going to be angry as you know what after the election. That's serving two masters. Trust your spiritual nature, your union with the divine, and return to peace. Do you want to be right, or do you want to be at peace? You know, way back, remember the year 2000, January the year 2000, when people were so afraid that year, and everybody was just sure that the Y2K was going to shut down the world. And the weekly world news headlines that week said, all the banks will fail, food supplies will be depleted, people were stocking up on food, the electricity will be cut off, the stock market will crash, vehicles using computer chips will stop dead, airplanes will crash, telephones will cease to function, and the domino effect will cause a worldwide depression. Remember that? That New Year's Eve when we didn't know what was going to happen the next morning. And I remember telling all my congregation back then, trust your union with God. Stand in your truth. We're going to be okay. And the same scenario this week, no matter what happens. Trust your union with God and each other. We're going to be okay. Have an acceptance of what is, no matter what. Know and trust your union and listen to those inner promptings to take action, not reaction, from the inner promptings of spirit, and then trust the unfolding evolution of consciousness, of each other, of the universe, of yourself. There's a wonderful author called Adyashanti who compares the effort of this lifting up of consciousness to a rocket and jet propulsion. And you know, when you especially if you work for NASA, you saw those jets taking up and the power it took to get those jets above gravity. But once they reached a certain place above the earth, they floated. It was effortless. It was easy. Adyashanti said, a rocket ship takes a tremendous amount of thrust and tremendous amount of energy to get off the ground, and then to break the gravitational field as it travels through the sky and ultimately into space. If there's enough fuel in the rocket and it gets far enough away from the Earth, it can eventually get beyond the gravitational field of the planet. And once the rocket is beyond the Earth's gravitational field, the Earth no longer has the pull to pull it back down. And right now the world is trying to pull us back down when we're trying to lift up in consciousness. But if we keep going with all the effort and intention and prayer, we'll get to that point of ease and grace, and we will be able to sustain it. Meanwhile, we have to keep laughing at our fears. Why did the ghost go into the bar? For the booze. Let's all say boo, all together now. Boo. I now invite Brandon and Terry and Gigi to come up, and we are going to sing I Release and I Let Go for ourselves, for this election, for everything on the planet together.
And this is what you have to say. I release and I let go. I let the Spirit run my life, and my heart is open wide. Yes, I'm only here for God. No more struggle, no more strife. With my faith I see the light. I am free in the Spirit. Yes, I'm only here for God. I release and I let go. I let the Spirit run my life, and my heart is open wide. Yes, I'm only here for God. No more struggle, no more strife. With my faith I see the light. I am free in the Spirit. Yes, I'm only here for God. Oh, I release and I let go. I let the Spirit run my life, and my heart is open wide. Yes, I'm only here for God. No more struggle, no more strife. With my faith I see the light. I am free in the Spirit. Yes, I'm only here for God. Yes, I'm only here for God. Yes, I'm only here for God. With our hearts released into the joy of knowing, let's just say our tithe and our offerings, knowing that as we give of ourselves, of our tithes, our offering, our talent, we are giving to the universe, which is always giving to us. And so just know that your tithes here are always appreciated to keep this spirit of love going. And so let's say our blessing together for our tithes. Divine love through me blesses and multiplies all that I have, all that I give, and all that I receive. And I am grateful. And those of us here, we can put our tithes in the baskets in the back. Okay. I'd like to close this now with a little prayer, and this is a prayer of gratitude. So, I'm going to cry, knowing our oneness with all that is, and our oneness with each other. We are so grateful for this message of love that we heard today. This message of knowing that we have the power for peace in our lives. And we can do that by acceptance of the knowing that the universe has a grand design plan and that we are all a part of it and we all get to be that in a joyous, peaceful way. And so we're so thankful for this knowing of our love for each other as a community, as our love for each other in our families and with our friends. And so we go forth this week knowing that all is well. And so it is. Amen. And now we'll just do our prayer of protection together. The light of God surrounds us. The love of God enfolds us. The power of God protects us. The presence of God watches over us. And wherever we are, God is, and life is magnificent. Amen. Amen.